Welcome to the Game Changers Collective podcast. Today's conversation is a very moving one. I am joined by Ksenia Merck, an incredibly talented artist and architect, and the illustrator of a beautiful book called Ghostflower. This book was written by her late husband, William F. Merck, whose sudden passing left a job unfinished. Sania then took this mission on to fulfill this soul contract with her twin flame soulmate. And we get into all things the book, William's spirit, Sania's experiences, her journey through healing. And this episode is really about resilience, creativity, and the kind of devotion that carries on beyond a lifetime. It's an honor to share their story with you. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to today's episode of Game Changers Collective. I am joined by Ksenia Merck, an artist. She is an architect and she is a loving wife with a wonderful story that we are going to get into today. Ksenia, it's so nice to have you here.
Cassie, it's so good to be here with you. And I just appreciate the spirit and your receptiveness to my project, my passion project with this Ghost Flower book and companion journal. So thank you so much.
So, Sania, you have a very unique story, and I think that's the best place to start. So, you've shared this story I've watched you share it with many people, and it's very moving. So, if you would like to go ahead and share that right now for our listeners, I think that would be a great place to start.
Well, thank you. I do feel this is a really special story. I knew when I married Bill in 1997 that he was my soulmate. I knew that. There was something about him that, it was for me, it was just magnetic. I didn't really care what we were doing. I just wanted to be with him. And, we were married for 26 years and 14 of those years, my mother lived with us and, he took great care of her. She passed in August of 2022. So it was this week, 3 years ago, that she passed. And she has been, this week in particular, she has just been with me through a lot of things this week. And I'm very blessed for that. I was very close with her and it was very difficult, her final years, and then it was difficult after she passed. And, at the time, it was the year of 2023. Bill had already published 2 books. And in 2023, he started writing Ghost Flower, and he went after it. I mean, he would wake up early in the morning and he would just go to his computer and start writing. It was just flowing. And I would wake up and we would have our coffee and he would just be on and on and on about this book. And really it was about, where he was always interested in this universe, but is there more? And there's so much that we don't know. And so that's what he was writing about. He was writing about, the Andromeda Galaxy and this group that lands here and it evolves in the book. And he wove in so much about our travels and our experiences to really bring it to life. And we'll get into more about the book. But then at the end of 23, both of us were really not feeling well. And he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And we were under the impression that this was a manageable thing, even though it had progressed. And then in January of 24, it was not good. This was bad. And he was having some terrible reactions. And this was for a person that, Bill, I will tell you, I think I could count on my right hand how many times he was ever sick. And when he would get sick, he would go lay down, take a nap, and come back, and he'd be refreshed and he'd be ready to go. He just had so much energy. I always felt like with him and my mom, I was, and I'm a high energy, but I was always struggling to keep up with them. Well, this was not good. And so he had been to the doctor and I ended up taking him to the emergency, which they said if I had not taken him, he would have passed that weekend. We were in the hospital for 2.5 months. And I think prior to this, Bill had thought, if one of us is in the hospital, we need to come home and rest and, so we can be there. I said to him, I said, Bill, I just cannot leave. I cannot leave. And he said, I agree. So I stayed with him every night in the hospital and I was there the majority of the time. I would come home periodically to do some essential things, but I was there with him and it was off the charts bad. It was off the charts bad, and there was something that was happening, though, in the hospital with, I think, our spiritual connection and spiritual vibration was just there was something that was happening that was it was increasing, and since I was there all the time, I was seeing everybody in the hospital, and because they always saw me in the halls, and they were all asking me, how's it going?" And they were praying for us. Different people came to our room to pray. Different people in churches were praying for him, for us, and, I think it was, just in all of it was just shocking. It was just shocking. So he he did pass, over on in March of '24. While we were in the hospital. He said one day, "Go get my laptop." And I was so encouraged because I thought, "Oh gosh, he wants to get into this book." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is a great sign." Well, so he did, and he went in there and he made some edits to the book, and we talked with his editor on the phone, and he had some distinct marching orders for both of us about what he wanted done. And I was so encouraged. It was so great. And then he said, "Well, bring some sketch pad and some colored pencils." And so I did. And he sketched out what he wanted for the cover. And the plan all along was that I would paint it. And so he was saying, "Well, I want this, I want that." And then there was so much commotion here at this house after he passed that I couldn't find that sketch. But, I was there when he drew it, and I had a lot of administrative things to do, and then I got into the book because I needed to respond to the editor's comments, and so I basically was going to my work during the day, and then at night I was doing the book and responding to all the comments. And so then I met with the editor on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, and I had made a big pot of coffee. I had my sketchbook ready, I had my notes ready. I met with the editor, and wow, I was energized and so excited. And so I locked the door. I brought all my paints into the dining room, and I just started painting and sketching. And I know that I know that Bill has been here with me this entire time doing this. I know it. I feel it because we would sit here in this den. This is my chair. His chair is over there. And we would talk for hours, but I know he was here with me as I was painting these things and picking the font for the book. And by that Monday night, I had collaged the cover, and I was really tired. It was midnight, and I know he said to me, "Let's go out there and do another couple passes at this." So I did. And do you know that I had the different components of the book all in pieces. I'm old school, so I didn't do this on the computer. I was cutting and pasting and making bigger and smaller. And when I put the spaceship, boom, in the center, we were done. We were done. That was the cover. And I know he was with me here doing that. That to me is incredible. And so and I could hear him in my mind driving to work because I would always be talking to him on the phone, and I was driving to work. But now I hear him in my mind, and I felt like I was having this conversation with him about what to do next, what to sketch next, and one sketch kind of led to another. And so so then I was up to 44 sketches for this book, which was a lot. But he really pushed me. And what's interesting is that throughout our life together, he did push me on several different things, and he was always right, because it came together. And this was just another example of this collaboration with him that I was so, that I just that really gave me a purpose, because I think that, this has been such a gift. It's been such a gift that he has given me and been with me, and to have this project together, I feel is so powerful, and has really given me a new perspective and a new vibration for how to go forward in my life right now. And that's incredible. That's incredible. So I feel very, very blessed to have had Eva, my mom, for all these years, and Bill, And, I feel like people say they're in your heart, and, oh, that is definitely for sure. That is definitely for sure they're in my heart, but I feel that they are here, they are around me, and I have other examples of where Bill has influenced me on things, and we can get into those if you want to. But I feel like this has given me a purpose. And I think for other people who have lost someone, this is what is important is to find a purpose, to honor the person who passed or to take on a project or to take on a different cause. But for me, this project honors my husband's legacy, which is very, very important for me. I feel that I have a soul contract with Bill to do this. I feel that very strongly. This is a mission for me to have published his book and to complement it with this companion journal is really I feel it's my mission, it's my passion, and I love it because I love him. This is our collaboration, this is our project together, and so I will tell you that right now, I'm a different person than I was a year and a half ago. I'm a different person because I have a direction. I have a light. I have a lot that I'm thankful for. And I feel that my creativity, he has awakened my creativity, and that is huge. That is huge for me as a person. And so I'm at this point just very thankful for so much.
Thank you for sharing that beautiful story. I love hearing it every time. And you mentioned legacy. What was Phil's life really filled with, throughout, the entire, 26 years that you two spent together? What were some of the wonderful things that you saw him do in the world?
Well, Bill, just an incredible person. He had 50 years in his career, 50 years. So that's a lot. He did a lot. And he had such a wide variety of interests. And I think that, this all makes sense that, he was interested in different places in different countries. He loved to travel. He loved to hear people's perspectives. And and it didn't matter if he was talking to you, he was talking to you. He was listening to you. He wanted to know what you thought or why a certain thing happened the way it did. And so he was in higher education, and I like to say that because I believe this to be true, he built 3 campuses. He was at James Madison for I think 14 years. And then he was at the College of William and Mary in Virginia for 10 years. And then he was at the University of Central Florida for 22 years. Each of those roles, he was a vice president, and at UCF, he was also the CFO. So he had numerous departments reporting to him, including the police, facilities, parking, resources, purchasing, huge amount of people reporting to him in all of those years of his working life. And he just really wanted to he was about doing the right thing. He stood by his decisions that he made. That is the sign of true character. And the respect I have for him, just huge. And so, I think what was so interesting is that Bill was several years older than me, but my parents were actually older than his by a few years. And so all of our parents, our 4 parents, were all from that greatest generation, the World War II generation. And so our parents instilled in us, I think, the same core values. So he and I had that in common. We had that in common about doing the right thing, about, what was really important to us. And we both in our careers just really worked hard. And I do mean worked hard. And I don't think it's the years. I think it's the mileage that we've put in because it's huge. It's huge mileage. But we both shared that and our interests in all kinds of different things. So my life with Bill, and I look at our pictures and I look around in our home, and we really were on the go a lot, and we packed it in. I would say we're packing this in, and we did. But I loved it. I loved all of it, and so much good and so many good experiences and the variety of experiences. And I think that I look at his book, Ghost Flower, and when you go through this book, it's about people in the future trying to find a cure for a pandemic in the future, but they have to time travel to the past to 1585, but to find something that aliens left thousands of years ago, this flower that has these healing properties. And so, okay, right there, those three things, that's huge. But then he weaves in the detail of the travel to the different places all through Europe and then through North America and down to Cuba, the Western US. So he weaves in all of these different things, a lot of it, the travels that he and I have experienced together. So he had the detail of those places and the range that he has in this book. That's why I did 44 sketches, because we were all over the place. We were all over Europe. And so as an architect, I, of course, had to draw buildings in some of these locations, some of the castles, some of the different places. To me, I thought that was a great way to show, the place. And then there's also the people that really can be imagined, the characters that he writes about and the detail that he goes into. And so I think that his Ghost Flower book, really does capture a lot of the things that he did in his first book, which was on leadership, and his second book, which was called Breadcrumbs: Finding a Philosophy of Life, he was a great storyteller. Oh, the stories that he had, in year 26 of marriage, he's telling me stories and I'm like, Bill, I've never heard that story before. And he would just smile. He would just smile. Well, he wrote about 100 stories in the Breadcrumbs book, and they're excellent. And they really give you insight to growing up in South Georgia in the 1940s and 50s and the influences of his grandparents and parents, again, the greatest generation. But the purpose of that book was really to he showed how his philosophy evolved and some of the things that impacted him, but he wanted the reader to figure out their own philosophy of life. And I think that he rolled those concepts of leadership that he spoke about in his first book, and then these other principles in the Breadcrumbs book, he wove that into the Ghost Flower book. So you see instances in Ghost Flower of leadership and leadership of the women and promoting the women, which he did. He did. He promoted people from different cultures and women. He promoted people who were right for the job because he would look at you and see the potential in you. And then he would figure out that the creative part of him would figure out how to put you in a position where you could succeed. And that is a leader. And so that's who I was married to, this incredible person. And then to me, as a person, I couldn't, for me, I couldn't, and I said this at his services, that he was perfect for me. Just for me, the sound of his voice was so calming to me. We would talk for hours, and I love that. So you asked me what was it like for 26 years. I'm pretty blessed and fortunate to have loved like that and to feel it back and to feel it back. That's
So for people listening, they can hear this deep connection that you had, with your flame, right, your twin flame. And so for people who haven't found that person yet, what are some things that they can look for, or how did you know, that they want this connection that, they can feel in your voice?
How do you know if you meet your twin flame? I would say, well, for me, it was just magnetic. It was just magnetic. And I think there's this moment that basically, I just looked at him and it was like there was just this immediate connection. And I do feel that I've probably known him in past lives. And there was just this connection that I felt home. I felt home. And that's, to me, the best way that I can say it is that that's the feeling, And I think, for anybody to find that, it's just incredible. It's incredible. And so I'm pretty fortunate.
So I know you mentioned that he, pushed you throughout your life with, you had an incredible career as an architect and you're an artist. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how those two worlds of art and architecture, shaped this work that you're doing now.
Well, interestingly, my dad was a contractor, and I started going to job sites with him when I was 4. On Saturdays, he would take me along with him, and then he was my dad was a lot older. I think my mom was 41 when she had me and my dad was 44. So he was a lot older, and he had really bad arthritis. He was a World War II paratrooper. I mean, when he entered the room, he had a presence. You knew this man was there. He was incredible. I mean, he just, his energy just filled the room, and he commanded the space. But he was a World War II paratrooper, so he had taken some tough jumps out of aircraft in World War II in the Battle of the Bulge. And an interesting thing, I just have to say this, is that it was several years ago, but Bill was reading a book about World War II, and he found out that his dad, who was also in the Army, was 20 miles away from my dad in the Battle of the Bulge. We just were amazed at that we had that connection as well. And then my mom was a World War II WAC. We both came from really good stock, as I say. So my dad was a contractor, and I would go to job sites with him, and I loved to draw, and because he had really bad arthritis, he asked me to draw some of his CPM schedules, critical path method schedules. And so we would list out all the trades, and then he was saying, well, we need to do this before this. And so there's a learning experience there about construction that I was doing when I was 12. Then in high school, and during that time also, I loved to draw. I loved to draw. He had bought me an oil paint set, and I loved to paint. And then in high school, I loved the art, but I also loved math. So I ended up going to Virginia Tech to start in building construction, to be a little builder. But they also at that time that year was the first year they required a design lab. They wanted the builders and the architects to start to talk to each other, as opposed to one being over here and one being over here. So I did that design lab, and it was fantastic at Virginia Tech. My experience at Virginia Tech was exceptional. It was so good. And it's because I've just submitted something for Virginia Tech for 40 years for the International Archive of Women in Architecture. And one of the things that I submitted was a silk screen that I did of a blue house. But I wrote about that was where thinking was activated. And to me, that was what was incredible about architecture at Virginia Tech. It was about thinking. We weren't there to learn how to, draw the designs for a contractor, but we were there to think and to really understand things. And so I came away with that, and that has been a great foundation for my career. Then after Virginia Tech, I started in private architecture firms, and then I was at the College of William and Mary too, and then here in Orlando at the airport here for now my 28th year as a program manager. And so you might say, what is a program manager? Well, that is where we have a program that has many projects in it, and that's what makes up a program, and that's how we carve up things to bring it together to a whole, and that's what we call a program. So I'm in my 28th year here in Orlando. So I've got 40 years in the industry. And I think that, where I'm at right now is pretty good because I have experienced so much in my personal and my business. I started my own business in 2002, and my dad and my husband and my mom, my biggest champions, they supported me, encouraged me. And that is huge. That is huge to have your family in your corner like that. So these are, pivotal moments for me on where the most important people in my life have supported me. And I believe they're all three of them supporting me now. And I've got to honor that.
And so, Sania, you mentioned your mother earlier. She was a very special person to you. Would you like to share a way that she influenced you?
Well, yes. My mother, Eva, was born in 1920 in the Depression. She was one of 9 children, and an incredible person. She was came from a small town, Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Several of her brothers were in the military, and so in World War II, she volunteered to be in the military and actually did her basic training to be a WAC, Women's Army Corps, here, not too far from here in Daytona Beach. And then she was stationed in Harlingen, Texas, and so she was a sergeant in World War II. And it was later after that she met her husband, my dad, who was also a World War II veteran. He was a paratrooper. And so they got married later in life and had my brother and I. She would always say, and she had this after she passed, I found this in her one of her jewelry boxes, and there were two of them, and so I framed one for me and one for my brother, and I'm going to try to hold this up. But it's called The Best. So the best. If you can't be a pine on top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub by the side of the hill. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. It isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best of whatever you are. So she would always say, be the best. Be the best of whatever you are. She would always say that to us. And, the rest of this poem I now have, but she would say, be the best of whatever you are. And, that, just that is huge to try to do as a person. And so I have that from her that I love. And so I framed one of these for my brother and one for me. But there are certain things that I can just see her saying that. And I feel that right now, even some of my own mannerisms, the way I'm saying it, feels like her. So I think that, so this is another, just one of those huge connections that I feel with the spiritual side and these people that I have loved. And I think it's true. You keep those people in your heart, but I feel that they're here. I feel that they're here. So I wanted to share that with you.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So you mentioned, honoring, your loved one's legacy. It sounds like you've had some really, really special people in your life to support you. So what advice would you give to someone going through deep loss or trying to honor a loved one's legacy that might not have this amazing gift journey that you have been set on yourself? How would you advise them?
Well, there may be some project associated with that person that, you know, that they wanted to see finished. Which would be a great way to still connect with that person and to honor that person. In the case of Bill, he wanted this book published. He wanted this published, and I said, yes, I will do it. And so, but I think that you know, I think finding something to remember and honor a person who's passed is just really important. And my case is publishing a book, but it could be something else that honors the person who has passed. You know what I mean? That would make sense for their situation or their life. So I would say find something that would, fits that person to honor that person and their legacy. So that to me is what's important.
So what inspired Bill to start writing Ghost Flower?
Well, first, I mean, he's an excellent storyteller. So he really is good at that, but he was always interested in the stars. Always interested in the stars. On our honeymoon, we stood out on Sanibel Island here in Florida and we just looked at the stars. It was just incredible. And then the stars in Arizona at night, when you have a night sky community, it's incredible. And he would look at the stars in Arizona, in Sedona, and point, and just he wanted to always be out there at midnight because that's when it was really dark and he could really see all kinds of different constellations. And then he loved pointing out different ones to me. He loved that, but he always was questioning, where do we come from? Where do we come from? What is our purpose? There's so much, he kept saying, there's so much that we don't know that's out there. And I think all of those things, I think he was always interested in that. And I think his first two books were a warm up for what he did with Ghost Flower, because I think he wove it all in. And I think he's just I think he's just a genius, but then I'm partial, but I think that man is a genius. I really do because he's in tune with a lot more than what you might think on the surface. And so if you really start digging into Ghost Flower, and then we do some of that with the companion journal where we go in and I give basically some quotes from the book, but then ask some pertinent questions that are philosophical and spiritual for the reader. And it's all about thinking, what is your purpose? What would you do? Would you do time travel? I will tell you that if I could do time travel right now to meet my twin flame, Bill, 1585, I'd jump out that door right now to go do it. I would jump out the door to go do it. So, that's for me. Why did Bill write it? Well, I think he had a lot of ideas, but he was, like I said earlier, he went after that book. He went after it. And he has some notes on it, but a lot of it just came. He just flowed in the way he, I think, went chapter to chapter was really pretty amazing and blended these different genres and time periods.
Yes, I've been reading it and it's been so fun how every chapter goes to forward and back in time
Uh-huh.
into a different setting and a
Uh-huh.
different group of people. It's so
Uh-huh.
fun. It's a real page turner.
Mhm.
So what does the title Ghost Flower? It's such an interesting title. What is it? What did it mean to Bill and what does it mean to you personally?
Well, the ghost flower, the team in the future is traveling back to 1585 to because there's something hidden away in the libraries in the university library that a monk had done about this ghost flower. And this flower, I think, Bill named it ghost flower because it came from the aliens from thousands of years ago. So that may be the ghost part, and then the flower, of course. But I think that there's some mystery. There's something mysterious about that flower and its healing properties. And so I think that's why he named it Ghost Flower.
And so interesting. I mean, when I heard this story for the first time and the name of the book, and you told me, everything that had happened, Ghost Flower is just the name in of itself is just almost so encapsulating of the experience, right? That you've had with it. Like the flower is this blooming thing, it's growing, it's new. And so it's like he left that for you. It's incredible that that's what he titled it before he was even diagnosed.
It it is. It really is. Another parallel was that we were in the hospital and they could not figure out what was causing the bad reactions that he was having. So we were in the hospital for 2.5 months and they could not figure out what was causing the problems that he was having. And he had written a book about trying to find a cure for a pandemic in the future. It was just there was something that was going on there that was just so the connections were weaving in and out at that time. And so, yes, you're exactly right to, for him to leave this book as a project for me. And it is about, the flower. And for me as a person, I'm awakening. I'm awakening right now as a person, just as a flower is opening up. I mean, I am becoming a person again, coming back to, my core person. So there's so many synchronicities about this book and this project that really profound for me.
And Sania, you're such a vibrant and colorful person, so you have an incredible life, ahead of you. And so, how has this experience influenced or transformed your creative work moving forward?
Well, my creativity is now awakened. It's awakened. I have certainly, it's a joy to have this companion journal almost published, but I have been doing some other art projects and have sketched out some ideas for other projects. And so I'm now doing some things that I never have done before. And it's pretty exciting. And I'm building on some of the concepts that are in the companion journal, but I'm really exploring and I'm doing some different things. So it's exciting. It's exciting for me. I think that for me, I will be to, it's an honor for me to do the Ghost Flower book and the companion journal, but I think that I'm going to be writing a book or more also about these experiences. And I've been journaling this entire time. And so there's I've gone through different phases with this, and so I think that I'll be doing some writing books to again, the purpose is to help people through something like what I've just been through, you know what I mean?
Right. And so I have the book here, right? And so let's talk about the companion journal that's going to go alongside of it because I think it's so special and it's going to help so many people that, they're
I
looking for
just happen
something
to
to help
have
them
this
through.
right here, I love this.
Beautiful.
Yes, companion journal. So what the journal does is there are 44 sketches in the book, and the sketches were chosen for specific chapters for a reason. But as I was drawing them, there are things that I wove into certain sketches that one sketch would relate to another sketch. And so I organized the book based on how really I thought the sketches would flow. But then I tied them to the chapters in the book. So if you're reading the book and you want to go to chapter 1, you can go to a certain page in the book and find the sketch. And then there's chapter 1, inspiration, and then some questions for you, the reader. There's also a short paragraph about what inspired me to do that sketch. So that's where there is, if you will, insider information about how, what inspired me. Bill had this motto of use everything. And what does that mean? Well, I as I was sketching and trying to get ideas for different things to fit and complement the book, there were things in our house. Here, I'd pull this out, pull that out, and I would sketch it and I would include it. For example, this bear. This bear is in the book, and Bill gave me this. It's a protective piece. It's Navajo, and it's really special to me. So I had to weave this into one of the sketches too. So it's that kind of thing that's in the sketches that in the book, they're 2 inches by 2 inches. So you might not pick up on some of these details, but then in the journal, I try to bring out some of these points so you can see the connections and the synchronicities in the sketches too.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be so fun for readers because the book is so sci-fi, it's so kind of in your mind of what's going on. So being able to bring it into your reality and kind of apply these thoughtful questions that you've put together to, their lives while reading the book is just going to be such a
Mhm.
fun experience and healing at the same time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, is there anything about your husband's life or the making of Ghost Flower that you've never shared publicly but want to get into today? And no worries if not.
Well, just I would say again, going back to that time in the hospital, that there was that was just so intense, but I really felt, and he felt it too, that there was something happening spiritually. I was always a spiritual person. My grandfather was a doctor of divinity, had established churches in Russia and Poland in the 1930s and 40s. He was in 2 concentration camps. My grandmother was too with him. They survived. Incredibly spiritual people. And I'm blessed to have that as a part of me. And so I've always been that way, but for me, that was accelerated, that was magnified in the hospital. And Bill was feeling that too. And so everything during that time just is to me elevated, more important. And so when he said, go get this, or go, I wanna see my laptop. Whoa, that was incredible, and he said, "No, we wanna do this, we wanna do this, I wanna make sure this is done, this is done." So that, I will tell you, is when someone like Bill says, and what was so amazing about him was that he really didn't raise his voice. But when he said no, he meant no. When he said yes, he meant yes. He was very, but so when that book was just very important to him, which is, because he's my twin flame and I believe I have this soul contract with him, this is important to me and it's my passion. I because when I'm working on this project, he's with me in it. And that's the spiritual connection that is just unbelievable. And so that's something that I'll be writing about, but that's an important thing here right now that you ask.
So, what message or feeling do you hope readers will take away from Ghost Flower?
Well, there's several things, but I hope that people really see the humanitarian mission in Ghost Flower because that is the core of what it's about. Yes, it's a science fiction book. There's a fabulous love story in there, actually several love stories, and there's action and there's adventure and there's travel and all of these things. But the core of it to me is the humanitarian mission. And what are we as a people right now willing to do for people in the future? What are we willing to do? And that's an important question, because what's so wonderful about Bill's book is that this is just about humanity. It's not about other extraneous things. It's about humanity. And I think if you really, for me, digging into this book, it's really about that, again, raising that vibration and understanding what would we do for humanity? What are we as an individual? What are we ready to do? What are we willing to do? And that's I think, an important question, because we can get caught up in, and certainly everybody does, we can get caught up in what is our daily life, what do we have to do with keeping our house tasks in order and going to our job and doing this and doing that and taking our kids to the soccer game and doing all this stuff. Okay, we've got to do all of that, but are we sitting back and really saying, what is our purpose and what would we do for humanity? How many people are doing that? I hope that that's what comes out of this book, because to me, that's important, because I think we, as this human race, really needs to come together. We need to come together and help each other in a positive way, That's what we need to do, I think. So that's what I hope comes out of this book.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So, if Bill could see this book out in the world now, well, I'm sure he is seeing it, but what do you think he'd say or feel?
I think he would say, this is good, but let's keep going, because that is because that is Bill. Um, you know, eh, I don't think it would be, okay, this is it. That's why I think I'm going to be writing other books, because this is the keep going. So the companion journal continues. There may be other things in other books, thank you for this podcast, but maybe other podcasts where we can, engage people to really be on this adventure, to join the ghost flower adventure. This is cool to me. But I think Bill would say, "Okay, this is good, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's do the next thing," because he was always looking ahead. He was ahead of his time in so many ways. And so that also, to me, comes through in the book, because I, again, I'll say it, I think he's genius, but I think that he would say, "Let's keep going."
Can you share a memory or a story that best captures his spirit or his sense of humor?
His sense of humor? I can't think of a specific story right now, but he did have a very quick, dry sense of humor. And then there would be this, he he would have this little giggle and this smile, and one of the pictures I have of him that we've got on the social media captures that. He's got this little sparkle in his eye. And so he had this dry sense of humor, and he would, he was able to hit something pretty quick, and then I would get that smile, and I captured that in that one photo. And so, that's what's so memorable about his quick wit. That's just amazing.
How did working on Ghost Flower and now the companion journal help you in your healing process?
Well, it saved me. It saved me. This project has saved me as a person, and it's given me a chance to go forward. So the healing aspects of it, and for me, the art, every sketch, everything related to the art for me is a connection with Bill. And like some of the art projects that I've got the back half of my house here torn up with my art projects. But these projects, every time I'm into it, that is where, to me, I'm concentrating on the art, and that's healing in itself. So to me, art is healing, but I know that when I'm working on these art pieces, and especially everything that we did in Ghost Flower with those sketches, that was healing for me, because I know Bill was here with me. And I'll tell you can I tell you a story about Shakespeare? So Bill was, vice president for administration and finance and CFO, and brilliant with creative problem solving. But what a lot of people don't realize is that he also had artistic talents too, and he could draw your portrait in charcoal, and he would look at, the structure of your face, and he would draw grid lines, and he would really analyze that, and he could draw your portrait. And I didn't really do too much of that. I focus more on buildings and landscapes and things like that. Well, so in the book, we have Shakespeare. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to draw the Shakespeare. So I had the Shakespeare picture, and then next to it, I draw my grid lines, and I drew him. And then I was like, oh my gosh, if Bill would do this in charcoal. So this is where some of my sketches evolved as I was doing them, and some of them were pen and ink, and then I did some charcoal, and I ended up redoing some of them to make sure they were kind of compatible in the same media. But the Shakespeare, I had to do him in charcoal. I did, and I did that charcoal drawing in one pass. One pass, that was it. And I know that Bill was right here with me doing it. I know he was here doing it with me. That's what's so amazing. And I even stepped back myself and I looked at it and I was like, Bill, we just did Shakespeare. And so that was, for me, it was an aha moment. It was a moment where I know he was here, because look at one pass. This was not like, and it came together. So I feel pretty good about that. But that's his creativity too, coming to me. So this is where there's so much that we don't know about these spiritual connections and the afterlife, and where do we come from. I'm so interested in every aspect of that right now, because all of that has engaged me, and I'm thinking about it, and I just feel my vibration has changed. I love to sit outside and commune with nature. I love everything about our backyard. We've just renovated it because of some previous hurricane business, but it's that place to meditate and to be with nature, which I love.
Sounds like you really found, your joy and your peace again, and I'm so happy for you. For anyone who is experiencing loss or, going through a diagnosis or anything like that, what advice would you offer them?
For anyone going through something like this? Well, I would say that it's so difficult to know when things will evolve, and you really have to give yourself some space, meaning that you need to take the time to do what's right for you. And I will tell you that in my life, I've always been on the mouse wheel. I've been on the mouse wheel for my job, for this, for that, and some other things. And with this, I'm taking the time that I need to heal, and I'm finding ways to heal. You're seeing me now smiling. Let me tell you, it's been so much crying, just, 'cause my heart was broken. My heart was literally broken. And do it. You have to let yourself be yourself and figure out who you are, and you can't hold anything back, because it doesn't. I think it needs to just come out, and you need to just be yourself. And this is hard for anyone, and I think everybody experiences it differently. But I would say give yourself time to really heal, and allow yourself to heal, and try to find the right place for yourself to heal. That's so important.
And so you mentioned journaling. How has journaling supported you throughout your healing process?
Well, there are just certain times I have different thoughts, and I'll write them down, and I think that helps me articulate, but also focus on some new things. And so that's very healing too. And for me, I always like to think about things before I draw something. So I kind of do journal, and I kind of do sketch, and I'll do a simple sketch, and then that's the latest painting that I've just done. So, but that's what's healing for me. So that's how I do that.
For sharing. And Sania, where can people see more of your art, your architectural work beyond Ghost Flower and the companion journal coming out?
Well, we are updating our website, so some of these things will be posted there, as well as some of them are being utilized in the social media with you. Cassie, that's one of the reasons that, I mean, I really appreciate working with you, because when we first met, I really felt as though you understood the spiritual aspects of this project and its core importance to me. And I think that you and your team have a level of consideration and respect for this project. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because this humanitarian mission is really what's key. And I want to spread the word about that. And I want to see this book in the hands of a lot of people so that they can really dig into this humanitarian mission.
Yeah, I mean, we've been deeply honored and humbled to be part of this. So thank you for letting us help you bring it to the world. So if people want to read Ghost Flower, where can they do that? Where can they find it?
Well, they can certainly find it on Amazon. I think at Barnes and Noble. So it's out there, it's available, and soon the companion journal will be too. So that's where I want to see that set complement each other, and people really dig into these philosophical and spiritual aspects of the book that Bill has masterfully put together. So that's what's exciting for me. That's what's happening next.
Beautiful. And I know we chatted about how wonderful reading the book alongside the journal will be, specifically for book clubs. We thought that would be really fun. We've chatted about that
Mhm.
before. How do you see book clubs or online reading groups or things like that, utilizing the experience of the book and the companion journal together?
Well, I think it's a great thing for book clubs. Initially when I was thinking about the journal, I wasn't really thinking about book clubs. I had immediately done the insider information, if you will, about each sketch because I wanted to capture that right away. But then, after talking with some people and understanding more about book clubs, I added the pieces in about, tying it back to the chapters and getting these philosophical and spiritual questions. And so that's where I think, you could be reading the book in a book club and the chapters, there are 50 chapters. But some of them are short. So you could literally, have a book club session and go through a couple of chapters and have the companion journal with those questions to spur the discussions. And I think that that's where it could be really fun for a book club to really dig into those things and have, hear each person's perspective. I think that's what Bill would really like to see is, people getting engaged and discussing it and, debating about time travel and twin flames and about the stars and where do we come from and what is our purpose and all of these things. So I think that to have people start discussing that it just in that starts to raise that vibration, and I think that that's what's really cool about this to me, and exciting, and I really wanna see other people get engaged, and hopefully there's gonna be that opportunity. I'd like to facilitate some of those type of book club sessions, so it's exciting for me, but I think that so earlier when you said, "Well, what would Bill say?" And see, it's keep going. So I think this is a way to keep going with the book clubs, and I think that it makes total sense. And it really is a way to, like I said, raise that vibration, and get everybody talking about how to do something good. I will tell you, I don't watch the TV. I haven't since January of 24 because I'm trying to, you know, heal. So I'm creating that environment to raise my own vibration, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Yes, I don't even have cable. We're just like, no, thank
Well,
you. Well, Sania, thank you so much for everything you shared today. It's always an absolute pleasure chatting with you. And I really look forward to working on the companion journal as I read through the book. It's going to be such an amazing experience.
I wanna say thank you, Cassie, for you and your team, and however I can help you, let me know, and I look forward to working with you on this and other projects as they unfold.
Likewise, thank
Thank you.